My next guest is Carl Reeder. He is a functional movement coach with over 20 years of experience helping clients improve their quality of life. He works with women with arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, and he has a special interest in improving bone health and reducing inflammation using the body's natural functional movements. He lives in South Africa and works with women all over the world. Today, we are going to be discussing safe upper body movements, how to free up your upper body so that you can reduce inflammation, pain, suffering, and increase mobility for a better functioning body and to age healthy and happy, especially if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia. Welcome, Carl.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me back. Good to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, you did episode 65 for me in May of 24, and we spoke mostly on the lower body and how to properly squat because lower body strength is critical to healthy aging and strong bones and strong lower body. And squatting is one of the most, if not the most effective ways to stay strong in your lower body.
Yeah, that's right. That's 100%.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the upper body. So let's dive in and speak about the upper body. Before we do, can you just give us a little 2 minutes on who is Carl? What does he do?
Yeah, sure. I trained in South Africa. I live in South Africa in Cape Town, and I trained as what we call a biokineticist, which is equivalent to an athletic trainer in the US. But my passion's always been functional movements, and so I believe the body's been designed to move. So I just like to get back to what the body's natural and functional movements are. And then I spent over the last 20 years working with specifically women over 60 with rheumatoid and osteoarthritis and a lot of autoimmune conditions. And that journey of working with them led me to this with the inflammatory conditions, the whole thing on osteoporosis. And so I had this huge, not gap, but there was this another area where women are struggling with osteoporosis. So that led me into the osteoporosis field. And so now I work online mainly with the US clients, but just on safely and how to strengthen their bodies effectively and safely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you do this. Okay, so what are some of the most common upper body issues you see in women as they age?
Yeah, so often we see a lot of shoulder strength mobility. That's the problem. I think just because of the whole mechanization and technology, they don't have to open their trunk or their garage door or hang washing or lift stuff anymore. Everything is kind of done for you. So you see just this general weakness in the shoulder and upper body, and as you know, that translates into poor posture. See a lot of wrist issues. Women have got a lot of wrist, and especially with the inflammatory and osteoarthritis and osteoarthritis, that really hinders them from actually holding weights or doing anything strenuous. So that's a big challenge I find, and obviously poor posture as they get older. They really struggle with that. Their core strength, and then upper pec muscles. I think a lot of women forget that these are the powerhouse of the body, and we've been so conditioned, with this whole forward posture to kind of stretch and open up the chest, which is correct, but you got to strengthen it as well. So we'll dive into that and unpack that later, but it's just that's a big thing. I find women are very weak in their chests and they stay away from chest exercises because of this idea that it's going to pull them forwards. But we'll discuss some exercises later, like how that's such an important muscle.
Okay, you just said a lot of things there. So I teach yoga and I've been teaching yoga since 2010. And I notice a lot of what you notice. So here's what I took out of what you were just saying is that we don't use our body the way we used to, right? And when you go to Europe or you travel, maybe in South Africa, it's like this. When we bring in convenience into our lives, when the trunk opens itself, when we have elevators instead of stairs, we actually do a disservice to our aging bodies, keeping them strong.
Correct.
And so that's one component is that we don't use our bodies in the way that we used to. We get limited in our range of motion and everything gets smaller and tighter. Then if you have inflammatory issues like osteoarthritis or rheumatoid, those are actually biochemical issues. So then diet and lifestyle plays a role there because when I take women off of dairy and gluten and sugar, they don't have joint discomfort anymore or pain, which means they live more. So you had that other piece there that was happening. And then the big thing that I see, Carl, and I wonder if you see this as well, is fear of movement. And so if somebody has an issue in their shoulder, has an issue in their wrist, they're so scared to bend or to move it. So they move less, less, less. It gets tighter, tighter, weaker, weaker. And we've got to expand into the safe place, into the place where we don't have pain, where we can actually work on flexibility, range of motion, and strength. That's what I notice in the population that I work with.
No, 100%. And the fear is, just that tension that's held in the body. So it's like a handbrake for the joints. And and I think it's, fair enough. Women are worried about the diagnosis and everything. But like you said, once you just can get them safely, and that's part of the functional movements, once you can do it safely and get all the right muscles activated, then you have a lot of confidence in the body.
Yeah, so the diagnosis, we're talking about osteoporosis, osteopenia, they definitely,
Correct.
and then women who have fractured, the wrist is the number one fractured site on women over age 65, the distal
Correct.
radial. And
That's it.
part of it is because if you don't use your wrist and if you don't bend, if you can't bend close to a 90-degree angle with your wrist, which a lot of people lose the range of motion. If you have inflammation in your joints, that's going to affect your mobility. It's going to be painful. And if you don't have that bend in your wrist and you need your wrist to brace your slip, trip, stumble, or fall, then your body breaks. So
Correct.
we have to have it, like we have to be bendable and not breakable. We need to have this play in our body and the strength and the function. And so that is what I think a lot of women don't think of. They think, I need to have better balance, so let me stand on one leg, or I need stronger body, let me go to the gym and let me do whatever they're doing, bicep curls or whatever. But they're not thinking about the range of motion that we need in our joints, the function that we need in our body so
Exactly.
we don't break.
Exactly. And the arms are like they transmit power like from the core to the outside. So it's another thing that women often struggle with, core strength, and then we'll touch on planks and stuff just now, but just getting that connection again, like it's not just the shoulders and the arms working out, it's all working together as one, and that's a big part. That you're not just loading like one joint as you exercise. So that's another big thing, and that's the functionality that's bringing back the function.
So let's go to that because this is really interesting. Women are told they need to do weight bearing exercises. So when I work with women, they say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and start doing weights. I'm like, great. What are you going to do? So either they hire a trainer, like they hire someone like you, which they should do, especially the good thing about working with someone like you is this. I think it is great to go into a gym. And if you can go into somewhere 2 or 3 days a week, great. And especially you need somebody trained in bone health. You cannot just go to some young trainer that
Absolutely.
doesn't know anything about bone health. But the good thing about working with you is that you're seeing them in their home environment because
Correct.
you need to take care of yourself every day, all day, not just 2 days a week in a gym. So you get
Correct.
that home thing. But what I'd like you to speak about, Carl, is everything is connected. And so you just gave this amazing, like, I'm thinking upper body. Okay, so women are going and doing biceps, which, okay, we need to move beyond that. I'm thinking that, but you just got me to think bigger. Wait a minute, everything is connected. So when you're doing the upper body, are you starting with people with core development because going from core out or up and out?
Correct. And I think like it's a brilliant place to start is that you got to see muscles as battery packs. It's like voltage. And so the voltage, the charge comes from the ground through the legs, in through the core, up through the pecs, and then it moves through fascia. So I'm covering a lot here, but that's that connective tissue, that wraps every single organ and muscle in your body. And so there's electricity flowing. And so what we find is weakness is just simply a low voltage. It means like you've got a low battery, like your iPhone or phone is not charged. You can't really send or do anything. That's actually what weakness is. So a lot of women think, well, I'm weak in the shoulders. I've got to strengthen my shoulders. I've got to get stronger biceps. But if you haven't got the flow of charge coming through the body into the arms, then that's where the damage takes place. So to get back to what you're saying is by strengthening the core and activating the core muscles, we actually start charging the batteries up. Not we start to get like our baseline, like you would say in the US, baseline electricity, the voltage, and then we shift it into the. It's got to also go through the back. So you've got to get charge coming through the front, which is the core. and you've got to strengthen your back. And so before I have any of my ladies do any weight lifting or planks or push-ups or anything, is to just really try to get that connection in the back and through the core muscles. Yeah, I don't want to run ahead too much because there's a lot there, but yes.
Yeah, but I mean, so because that's where you begin. So we should begin.
Yes.
So someone needs to work their upper body. So what are some of the first things they do? How do they activate the core? What are some, give us some tips on that.
Yeah. So that, one of the things is just knowing that your nerves to the core muscles are like your T7 to all the way to T11, mid-thoracic to lower thoracic spine. And so when the stiffness there, we generally find that people have like a low voltage in their core. So I even just have simple exercises like rotational movements, a lot of the yoga movements like just bending the spine, side lateral movements, easy squatting, just anything that's mobilizing that area, cat curl, those sort of some of the cobra moves that you do. It depends obviously on the client where they are with their back, but loosening up the spine is my first sort of to go. And then from there, I will then take them to things like an easy plank. Might start off with 5 seconds, especially my ladies with rheumatoid, even 2-3 seconds just to hold the plank and then fold that up. And then just get conversations. Do you feel the tummy muscles? Do you feel this tension? And often they'll say no. So you got to get them out of that and say, okay, well, there we go. You're not getting the voltage through. So we got to then do maybe some breathing exercises. We've got to let go of tension. We might have to go release, do some more spinal work. And then suddenly they'll say, hang on a minute. Yep, something's coming. I can feel the tummy. So it depends on the clients, but very, very 8 out of 10 of my clients to say, oh, I feel a little bit of tummy, but it's getting into my back. Or so that's the first thing.
Okay, that's great. So we have to start like charging the batteries to have the energy to move up the system because everything is connected, right? The connective tissue, everything talks to everything. And so you go from one muscle to the next to the next. So that's great. So getting the core with the cobra moves, the back bends that we do, spinal extension, some twisting and getting everything going. So this is great. And this kind of leads also to you being a functional specialist and really getting that function. So you start to do that. Is that something like if someone was going to do a 30-minute with you or an hour with you, is that the first 5 minutes of the practice?
It's generally just a warm up, correct? Warm up, sort of like just an activation. So they just get into feel which muscles are working, and then from there we just take it to the posture. So and the back muscles. So that actually the back muscles is done in the squats. So just by squatting up and down naturally, you actually have the back isometrically working as you squat down. So that's quite a nice way to do the squats. There's also those like alternate sort of those extension exercises where you're on your hands and knees and you're reaching out just to get some sort of back muscle stabilization. And then what I do is a lot of like isometric, sort of like I call them like the W's. You can see my hands in the video, like, and then just shoulder blade squeezes. There's the camel yoga one. I think you'll be more familiar with this one where you put your hands behind and just chest openers, just try to open up, but just activate those middle back muscles, the rhomboids and traps, as we know from the anatomical side of things. But just those gentle squeezes and strengthening, that straight away makes any sort of lifting of the arm muscles or planks or push-ups so much more effective and so much easier. So, that's the sort of the first, core, back, and then we go into, once they feel that, then we go into the upper body strengthening, and that varies. There's so many different ones. I mean, we can talk about push-ups or planks.
Yeah, I like how you do this. You're going front and back. So those rhomboids traps that pull the shoulder blades back towards their home because the shoulder blades actually, and I do this with posture with women. I have them just be, sitting normally and I tell them, go ahead and round yourself. Try to act like the hunchback of Notre Dame. It's so easy to do. But as soon as you bring your arms up and you activate rhomboids and traps to pull the shoulder blades to the center, you now have, it's your hanger. It's what holds you upright. You cannot round yourself. You can't because the shoulder blades are back there. So we go to the front, we activate the front, then you come to the back and you are stretching. You're also erecting some of those erector muscles, right? The muscles that go from the pelvis all the way up the body.
The neck, yep.
So, okay. So then you do that. So you spend some time warming up the core, then warming up the back muscles. So then you said now you're coming up to the upper body because this is what's really important for strong pecs, for strong shoulders, but really for posture, for looking good, for minimizing pain and discomfort, and minimizing compression wedge fractures. Half of
Correct.
all the fractures from osteoporosis are in the spine. So
Absolutely.
this
And
is
this is why
important.
that back line, like you just said now, is important. Just saying, Lives, this is super important that I've been working a lot with the clients, is that they often want to like pull their shoulder blades back and down. And you'll often hear instruction from PTs or someone like myself, like get the shoulder blades back and down. The shoulder blades are back and down in what we call a slightly extended spine. So if I just move back in the video here, sorry, these things are, but you'll see that you have to have extension. So you have the shoulder, if you don't want to be in a neutral spine and then try to pull the shoulders back and down. That's not a functional position. The functional is if you could actually feel as you puff the chest up, you can see how the blades drop straight away into that position. And it's a natural feeling. You know, if I said to you just like pull your blades back, the natural inclination is to, and that is something that I see a lot of women when we get into the whole resistance training, is when they do like a shoulder press or anything that's above their shoulder level, they usually will be in what I call like a neutral position. And that puts a lot of strain and load on the neck and the back. You've got to be not like, I don't want you to do a backflip, but I want you just to like let the chest, because the thing about it, you're pushing up. So you need that chest to, that thoracic spine to extend. If you actually just do one push up now without extending your spine, you'll feel the difference. So just go straight up like a shoulder press. And if you just let the chest now, like just puff like the chest out a little bit, like stick your chest out, look up and then go, you'll feel it's a different feeling. It's a more smoother movement. It's not like a compressed, that's a more shouldery kind of feeling. And that's getting into neck with that. Now look up as well, look up slightly as well. You look, there you go, there. It's much more functional. So it sets the whole, there's a whole lot going on there, but it's such a big key component. And also that whole traps back and down is much easier to do when your chest is extended than if you kind of like try to do that with your chest in neutral.
Yeah, so chest extension is like a rainbow shape with your upper spine, or lifting your heart up towards the
Correct.
sky. And what that does also, Carl, is it minimizes injury in the shoulder. If you're just mobilizing your shoulder and it's not aligned properly, you're going to be pulling on something and
Correct.
leading potentially to injury. So this is also for injury prevention, because if you get injured, you're not going to move as much. And movement
Absolutely.
is what is going to keep us happy, pain-free, mobile, and be able to live a very active life.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where yoga is also great with those, you know, those all chest opening that you guys do, and all those sort of just getting that awareness of those back muscles. So great. So from there, it's this, we can either go to the planks. So the planks and push-ups are very popular exercises. I would say they're like the squats, but a lot of women struggle with the push-ups. The planks, a lot of women are fine with and comfortable, but the push-ups, I think it's just the technique, and also like, you know, the amount of reps. So if you're doing too much, like, so that's, we can touch on that, but I normally go to the planks before. I don't discourage push-ups with ladies, but because I work with so many women who've got like rheumatoid, there's just no way. They've got shoulder issues, neck, they've got acromial issues, you know, your top of your collarbone here. So push-ups is, I find generally it's a difficult one. I'm not sure if that's something that you also come across.
Yeah. Well, I went to the bar method. I started the bar method. I loved it. I swear to gosh, we did 75 to 100 push-ups. And I did look around the room and people had their heads hanging and their shoulder blades were winging.
Winging up.
But even for myself to do that many, and I would just stay in a smaller range of motion to keep it safe. I made sure that my shoulder blades were in the back of my body. I really focused more on pushing away from the ground when I would come up. And I was okay to check my ego at the door and not think I had to go super low and super high. So I limited the range of motion. I focused more on pushing. I'm not even sure if this is right. I'm telling you, so you could correct me if not. I had a pretty wide base, kept my elbows in, focused more on the pushing away from the ground when I would come up. And when I would go down, I would try to feel that my shoulder blades were on my back and maybe even moving in towards each other.
Great. I love your awareness of the blades, because that's another thing that so many people are not aware of. So the wide stance is also great because you can get that with that whole W position. You can get into those scapular muscles. Interesting though, Debs, which I find is when you get the clients to strengthen their back muscles, so they can just be like even something simple like like if I was to squat and just reach out in my hands or hold that position, can you see how I've kind of holding that extended position here? That whole posterior chain muscles are working. Then you go give someone a push-up and they said, I don't know what's going on now. I couldn't even do 3 and now I'm already on 12. It's like, so, and the reason for that is the electrical lines are flowing again. And it's almost like you were talking about pushing up, and that's right, but almost that the back is lifting you up makes the push-up so much easier. Because if you push up is fun, but it's like a different feeling. And it's something that once you feel that activation of the back, it's like you're almost being pulled up by this charge that's going through the erector spinator of the back muscles. So that's another thing, that another sort of posture that I just hold a minute. If you've done yoga as well, you're just holding arms out, where you can see how kind of extended I am, but I can feel all those big muscles just isometrically working. So we're not moving, we're just holding that posture.
Yeah, that's chair pose.
Chair pose, exactly, perfect. So
Yeah.
that would be such a great little easy simple exercise to charge that posterior chain.
Yeah, that's actually a great posture, chair, because you get the lower body squat, so you get the benefits there. Now, can I ask you a question? If you were to do that posture, chair, I call them postures because pose, everyone thinks, here I am, I'm in it, but you're
Okay,
never in
no,
it
that's good.
because you're constantly trying to refine, lower the shoulders, slide the shoulder blades towards each other, lift the heart, keep your arms active, keep your awareness on your feet. Like it's a constant while you're in it.
Correct. Yes.
So if you were to do the chair pose, the one that you just did, if you put a block between your legs, your knees, so now you're activating that whole midline, the adductors, all the way up to the
Correct.
pelvic floor and core. And then with the upper body, you could either hold a block there. So what's the difference if I were holding a block pushing versus having my hands in a strap and pulling out? What I want to know what muscle
Yeah,
groups
so
those
that would
work.
be, if you're pulling out, you're going to go straight into lats, traps, rhomboids. You're going to be working waist muscles. And it's a very great point you bring here. When you narrow with the feet hip width apart and everything's narrow and you're doing that child pose, your
Chair.
seated chair, thank you. You're working with that sagittal frontal sagittal plane, so you get a lot of lower abs, and it's fantastic. But the other thing which you really want to get into is the waist muscles, the obliques. This is a huge stabilizer for which we're going to get into just now, all the functional movements, pushing and pulling. So when you do the same exercise with the feet wider, I'm just because I'm attached to these. When you do the same pose here, I get a lot more active internal external obliques. But when I go narrow, like if I'm keep my hips very narrow and I do that, I can feel a lot more abs. So it's a nice variation to where you want to challenge. So if you want to just, it could be a variation to that chair pose, chair posture.
And also,
And
like what you were talking about, the whole chain, right? We're activating so much together. We're getting a lot of communication.
correct. In the narrow, you're going to get a lot more buttocks, and in the wider, you're going to get a lot more hamstrings. So so I work a lot more wider stances because I really want to work that whole because I've done planks, and the planks generally is just like straight up and down here, you know. And it says you do feel waist in a plank, but it's not near as effective as if you were like just in a wider position. You have to feel it, but when you stand wider apart with the knees straight away, those obliques stabilize you. When you stand narrow, you get much more buttocks and hamstrings. So it depends, and core, abdominal muscles. So it depends on what you want to train.
Okay,
But
so
yeah,
that's the lower body part, but what about the upper body part? Because I think it's good to mix it up. So now if we're upper
correct.
body and we're pushing in on a block, you're not holding it, but you're pushing your hands in. So you're saying, what muscles are we using there?
So that would be pecs. Your pecs are pushing the pecs and the anterior shoulder deltoids. Biceps will be also having coming in there as well. And if you're pulling, then you're going to be getting. So I would be probably more inclined to get clients to pull out with that one to get the back muscles, because as you talked about, we've got that whole pec. This would be what I like about the block is you're not actually coming too close. You kind of separated the block, which is great. But yeah, this one would be a nice one. So are you doing that with a cable, like a light little TheraBand or something?
Oh, I've never done that, but you're saying what
Okay.
cable meaning pulling?
You were saying like opening the hands up like this. Yep.
You know what's really interesting? So the block is the front body.
Yes.
The strap goes into the back body.
Correct. That's the secret. Yeah. Yep. And
Ooh, that's a secret. Wait, we just gave
yeah,
a
yeah,
secret.
you just gave the secret. Yeah. And also just shorten the lever, like you guys in America say lever, we say lever, but shorten the lever, like just for the women, just maybe like have the strap around the biceps, because when they have the straps in the front, it's a lot of strain on the neck. So especially women have had neck injuries or like shoulder problems, like shorten the lever basically. And then get them to soften their knees as well, because some women stand with their legs straight. You always want to have knees soft. When the knees are soft, it brings on the whole chain. If the knees are locked, you bring on the bones, which is good for osteoporosis. But in terms of functional strengthening, you want to activate the muscles through the body.
Yeah.
Another secret.
Well, okay. So two secrets, the two secrets we just gave. And what were they? Just reiterate those two secrets.
Yeah. So the one was was the softening of the knees. And what was the other secret? The front would be when you squeeze in the block in the front would be strengthening the core in the front. And then if you open the straps, you're going to be strengthening the back muscles.
Okay. Yeah, when we bend the knees, we're activating because we get the joints involved, so we get the whole communication.
Correct.
And we do most of the postures that we're doing have bent joints when we're doing the osteoporosis, like yoga therapy for osteoporosis,
Perfect.
with the exception, and what I'm thinking, some in particular, when we do the leg, when we're stretching hamstrings or adductors, if you keep the knee straight, then you're actually going to be on the origin of the muscle. So we're actually pulling on the bones. We want to get the tendons, because when you bend the knees, or bend joints, you go into the belly of the muscle where you're going to have more communication. When you keep joints straight, you're on the ends of the muscle where the tendons are attaching to the bones, pulling on the bones.
Correct. Yeah, well said. So let's get to the arms, because that's the resistance part as well. And I think this is so important. So the first thing, like as I said to you, like is your power is from the core going up through the chest. Now, how do you strengthen the chest and the biceps at the same time? Well, push-ups is the go-to on that, but like we said, most women struggle with that. Is just simple isometric holds. So I've got like a 5-pound weight here, and what you can do is just hold that at 90 degrees. So any sort of lifting exercise. So carrying, like we talk about farming carriers, or just carrying a weight and just holding it in this position, I feel the whole pec and the bicep and the shoulder all working together. But that resistance is going through. I work with quite a few ladies who got a really bad osteoporosis in their forearms. So this is very simple. You can do the normal sort of bicep curl as well. But that bicep curl tends to aggravate neck. I find like this isometric works really well. And the other thing with when you're holding a weight like I'm doing here, you must move around. You never want to stand still. Don't just hold it like I'm still like this, because then that starts to go into the neck. So just even just moving around sideways like this, just keeping that shifts. And this is actually a pec workout. I know most people would be like, what are you talking about, pecs? But that is what the pec does. It's a huge stabilizer. So you need that pec. Remember, we started talking about this earlier in the session. It's so important that women get that strong.
What about your elbow was right underneath your shoulder? Does that alignment matter when you're holding the 5-pound weight like that?
Correct. Anytime the shoulder is chicken winged, when I talk about chicken winging, then it disconnects the core. So when you're close like this, and even punching or doing anything like that, it's a great point, by the way, that keeps this muscles engaged. It keeps the core, it keeps that connection to the core. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's very stabilizing. It also keeps the humerus head, the upper arm bone, in the shoulder socket where it should be. So then you allow those rotator cuffs to not pull.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So you got this beautiful, like you allow the prime movers to do their job and the stabilizers to do their job. Exactly what you just described.
Yeah, and I think so that's another thing that you just said. So and I think that's kind of what you're bringing up here too, Carl, is that, and when women think they need to weight bear and they go to the gym, we think of all the big muscles that are movers. We think about doing that, but what about the stability? And you're really bringing up the stability. You're bringing up the activation for safety, for lubricating the tissue, whether it's fluid so that the joints move better, or the muscles with the moisture and the blood that they need in order to function and to transmit the electrical or the energetic potential throughout the body.
100%. And that goes back to all those, like we talked about, this warm-up session, and it's just getting ladies to really be dialed into their body, that body awareness of upper body as well, that they can feel. Because if you have the average lady, they'll just try to be like, oh, feel it in my shoulder, feel it in my neck. But that, in terms of resistance training, you've got that. Then you've got the shoulder, like your shoulder press exercise, which is something that looks very similar to this. You've seen the women in the gym doing a shoulder press. This has got to be careful if your shoulder is bad. But if you've got a good shoulder, and what's really important here is you never want to be out to the side. You never want to be in line with your head. You want to be slightly forwards, if you can see. So they would be back here. And as you're pressing it, start looking. You want to look up and rotate the body. If you're watching in the video, you'll see my body rotates. What a lot of women do is just this. They just kind of, we call this robotic shoulder press. It's very much just up and down. And that just really just gets, it's going to really hurt the shoulder, and it's not functional. You're disconnecting by doing that. By doing the rotation and looking up and getting the chest, you get all those scapular muscles like you talked about, stabilizers. So that's the other thing with the upper body. You must, whatever you're doing, you've got to use the whole body.
Yeah, that's great. So far you're giving us a couple of things. So we did the whole warm up series.
Yes.
And then now you went into when you were holding the weight, the 5 pound weight, where the elbow was right on it. I'm just being descriptive for people that there's not a video yet. So if you're holding the weight in your hand, your palm is up towards the sky, you're holding on to that weight, whatever weight you're choosing to hold on to. The elbow is directly underneath the shoulder. And you said then you needed to walk around because you don't want to just be static. So that was the bicep, which was strengthening the whole
Pecs.
arm, right? The pecs.
Yeah, the pecs, biceps, and your deltoid, anterior deltoid, front of the shoulder muscles. Yep.
Okay, super important.
And it's, by the way, when you hold here, you get middle rhomboids and lower traps, which every PT around the world will say, please get them to activate lower traps. And I'm like, this is again one of the secrets. If you hold that like that, you get straight into there. You can't really feel it, but it's activated. It works together with the pec. So the pec and the trap, lower trap work together. If you don't have the pec, you don't have the lower trap. It's all communication. So it looks like a very simple exercise, those who can watch in the video, but it's super effective. And again, it builds into the plank again, because there's your plank position. So by just training this whole arm, like you said, you're able to build that strength safely. And the loading on the bone, especially on the forearm, is where the bone, where the osteoporosis comes in. So that's super effective. Very functional. Carrying a box, carrying anything else.
Right. So walking around your house with a 5 pound weight, moving around and doing things. So that was one thing. The next thing you talked about was that shoulder press. And now we're going into shoulders and we're going into back muscles, which are posture muscles, which posture is critical for bone health and healthy and happy aging. So now you had that, and you required the looking up, because that's going to actually add a little bit of extension and turn on the back muscles. And then I don't know if you remember this from our last conversation, but I talked about 3 scoops of ice cream.
Yes. I love your analogies. Yeah.
The cone was the bottom body. The first scoop is the pelvis. The second scoop is the rib cage, and the third scoop is the head. So when you're looking up, putting that weight back with your head, you're turning on all those extensor muscles in the upper back.
Absolutely.
So you have us doing shoulder presses up and with a rotation. So it's up and slightly rotated.
Yes, I think about like a victory punch. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't have Carl Reader telling you, you do it naturally. And it's not a Carl Reader technique. It's such a, if I look at my daughter and she wins something, she just goes like this, and I'm like, there you go. She doesn't even need to. Can you feel it? It's a natural. It just happens automatically. You extend, you rotate, and you punch up. So that is one of the biggest reasons why people have shoulder issues. Like it's one of my number one go-to when I work with women, especially who go to gym. I'm like, tell me what you do with your shoulders, and everything is stacked solid, and it's just up and down. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. Like you're gonna have rotator. I do have rotator cuff problems. I'm like, okay, I can see why. Let's dial it back a bit. But you said it so nice. By getting back like that, you activate those muscles. Something that becomes a little bit more advanced in that is to strengthen the back muscles. It's just even just lifting up a weight up above your head. Can you see how I've got a 5 pound here, and I'm just raising it? I don't know if you can see me in the video.
Yeah, so you have a 5 pound weight. You're holding on to the ends of that, Carl, and lifting up.
That's it, and it's just a perfect opportunity to really get into those mid. Because when you were saying just now, like about that kind of like slouchy posture, we always think about what happens around at the neck level, which is that you have to, but where the real damage is done is around the thoracic, lower thoracic spine. Okay? And that's where the rotational centers of the spine is done, the mid-thoracic down here. So that's actually where we get weak. We always want to think about here because we always feel neck problems. But where we're getting into the neural components is actually lower down. So when you're lifting up here, you're getting that whole extension. And again, how many people are lifting a box or something up over their heads, like you said, with the whole convenience thing. Not many. Um, so, I lift up my little girl, and again, I'm like, wow, this is a great exercise because it's something we just don't do, like you said.
Yeah, and Carl, a lot of these ladies have grandchildren, and one of the motivating factors for people to take control of their bone health or their aging and to get involved with all the parts that we need to be healthy aging and strong aging. One of the things is we have grandchildren, and you want to be able to play with them and to do those things. Um,
Correct. And
so
they're
so
not
that
light.
and they're not light. They are way more than a 5-pound weight. Maybe
Correct.
when they're first born, and you wouldn't be moving them that quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I love that. I love that. Like, I feel like I'm gonna go out and buy a 5-pound weight after our conversation because you're using a 5-pound weight. I think I have 1 or 2 pounds here, but I think I'm gonna go out and add this because this is what is so key to what you just said. So for explaining the spine, there's 26 vertebra, 7 of them are in the neck, 12 of them are in the thoracic spine, which is where the rib cage is. And a lot of what you're speaking about today is that. And then there's 5 in the low back. And it is those lower thoracic that are near the low back spine that actually are where the fractures happen. And half of the
Correct.
fractures are here. And even women who have a hip fracture, 53% of the women with a hip fracture had a previous spinal compression fracture. So, really, this is the beginning, what you're speaking about. So, what you just had us do, holding on to the end of a 5-pound weight, whether you're holding on with your hands or you're able to squeeze it, and lifting it up, and your gaze was going up at the same time. Carl, you're
Correct.
looking up at
And
the same time.
correct.
Yeah.
And just for those who want to jump on this podcast and do this, just start off by just raising both arms and looking up to the ceiling. You can even just hold your arms up like that. There we go. And build into this. Don't just go straight into 5 pounds because you might have a neck injury. You might have not an injury. You might have a stiff neck or your thoracic spine. This is where the coaching comes in, Deb. So you walk them through that. But what you're doing there is perfect. Some people have a shoulder twinge, so we have to sort of iron that out before we. But once you get that movement, can you see how the spine naturally wants to extend? It's not. You don't have me
It's
to.
amazing.
I don't have
'Cause
to coach you on it. Like it's not a call reader, like
no, and getting
technique.
a back bend is so important.
Yeah. And can you
Um,
feel how the lower blades also want to naturally move down there as you do that? The blades naturally kind of come together. So it's a simple, it's so simple, but it's super effective. And I mean, I work with elite. I've got athletes in Delaware. I work with elite people as well. And so like I get them even doing this as a warm up because they're also weak, their posture. But back to us, like this for ladies is so important that you mentioned that getting that extension through that compression area of the lower thoracic spine. It's a really good point.
I love that. I'm gonna start doing that. Carl, does it matter if the arms are straight or the elbows are bent when you do this?
So there you want to keep the arms just I would say straight's fine, like just like don't bend the arm. You'll notice a difference if you bring the hands closer together, you're gonna get like a little bit more upper traps through there. But if you take them wider apart, like the Y side, like if you have then there you get lower down and the lower rhomboids that lower like get into lower abs. And lower abs, your lower traps.
Wow.
Excuse me, it's the end of
That's
the day here and the
powerful.
other side of the world. It's
That's
but this is
powerful.
simple because for you, especially with the yoga, this is so. I mean, this you can tweak positions and activate different muscles. But what I think you've put your finger on is the power is the extension, Davey. That's the secret. And I'm not talking about just doing a cobra because some women can do that and some women struggle with that, and you have to build it into. But this is standing up functional like this. This is what we talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the most important things. And, it's so interesting because when we have children, we put them on their bellies to lift their heads up, to teach
Correct.
them how to get their back strong. From there, they start crawling, which starts to get the pelvis and the femur bone strong. Then they walk, which actually gets that angle and makes the pelvis and the whole kinetic chain work. So it's
You
almost
get
like we
your
need.
curves. Remember, your primary curve is C curve goes into there, and you develop your secondary curves, which is a key. That's the lumbar curve and the cervical curve. Those are those curves that you're getting through that extension, like you talked about.
Yeah,
Not
it's so
stuck in a
important.
computer.
Gosh, this is so important. So you gave us some great
And you
things.
know what's amazing about this? This will increase your flexibility like you have no idea because for those who don't know, your nerves actually split. They call it quarter equina. It's like the horse tail of the nerves comes down around like that sort of T12, T11. And so they start to exit there. And as you get that mobility through there, like the nerve, you just become so mobile. Like You'll feel like people's feet start to click and knees start to loosen, and yoga poses become really, really easy. Like it's really like at the hub. It's another thing. If you take away the intestines, you'll see that the diaphragm attaches there, the hip flexors attached there. You've got you've got so many muscles that are going in. So, yeah, the hip flexors, psoas, exactly through there. They share the fascia through there is so big. The QL is not directly on there, but it's on the ribs there. So there's a lot going on at that kind of central point. I call it the central station of the spine. It's where all the kind of muscles kind of meet. And when I work with chiropractors here, and I lived in the Middle East and in South Africa, they used to say, "You'll never ever loosen up that part of the spine." And I was like, "Hang on a minute, like." If that's the central area of the back, we've got to be able to loosen it up because it's so, and it provides so many other benefits. But I'm not, that's another podcast. Like,
Yeah. So I'm going to say that that's the golden giveaway of today's podcast.
great. So
There's been a lot of great things you said, Carl. If women could start to do this on a daily basis, because that place that we're talking about, which is where the lower ribs are, kind of right behind the belly button, it's where the diaphragm attaches onto your spine. It's where your hip flexor, one of them is called a psoas, meets there. The kidneys are there. Your adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. Your adrenal glands are where you make your steroid sex hormones after menopause, which is what we need for bone health. It's where most spinal rotation takes place, right where the low back and the middle back spine meet, that thoracolumbar joint. So this place that you're talking about freeing up, I'm going to say that is the golden thing. So for those that are listening and cannot see yet, your arms are in front of you, whether they're like closer together or a little wider, and you're lifting up. And you're looking up at the same time.
You're looking up at the same. If you're doing the standing, which I also recommend, is to just keep your knees soft. And what you'll notice is as you raise your arms, your pelvis will want to shift forward. It's just counterbalance as you go backwards. Your body. So allow that to happen, because otherwise you can compress in the lumbar spine. But that is really, like you said, it's so, and you can build up into that strength. Yep. It's a good place to not wrap up, but I think that would be a great, it's such a key point, like you said. And it also helps that area when you mobilize that area. Remember what I said to you, from T7 to T11, nerves to your core. So that's another big thing. When you free up thoracolumbar spine, you're going to have much better lower core activation. And it's a lot of the work that I do with, especially with my ladies who are a little bit more advanced, who are like working in Pilates or are really wanting to go for like core strength. And they're just saying, I just don't seem to get that extra bit of core strength. I straight away go for thoracolumbar. I'm like, right, off we go, off the plank. Let's just loosen up there. And I'll foam roll them, do some foam rolling through there. And they'll say, oh my gosh, it's actually really tight. And like, there you go. Let's loosen that up.
Wow. So yes, so we talked about that there's definitely important upper body. It's what you see in your work. It's what I see. I think that without maintaining good posture and a fluid spine, it's very hard to have an active and pain-free and happy life. Because you and I both are in a fields where we see the pain and discomfort. We have the conversations with women. We know what happens to the body when you stop using it, when you let that tightness come in, when you don't have that mobility. It leads to pain and suffering. And fractures.
And fractures. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, it's what we're prescribing in a sense is not heavy gym exercises. It's really, you can feel confident that you can do this without damaging yourself.
So could you give us a little 10-minute, the things that you said, thread them together to do this one, start here, do this, give us a little 10-minute. This is what, if you think 10 is sufficient, but start here to warm up this, to get this center working, to get this center, to get this center, do this movement, this movement, this movement. Just do a little, like every thread together what you just shared.
Yeah, so one of my favorites, just to get my guys started with, I call it the windmill, where I'm going to just sit because they won't be able to see standing, but it's this one where you're rotating the arm backwards like a windmill, and you're allowing the whole body to turn. So don't just do this like a robot. You like almost like a crawl. Allow the spine and the neck to turn with you as you're moving through there. So that's really, really simple. And then I do the jumping arms with exactly what you were doing just now, swinging the arms backwards and forwards, like just raising up, just getting that up and down a couple of times to get that spinal workout. And then I like them to go, we talked about the front. So I actually start with the back now that I'm demonstrating my program review all this, and then I get them into that sort of that squeezing into that V. So it's like, it's just get a feeling that you're exactly coming backwards and forwards, squeezing, looking up slightly, getting that posture through there, because that's creating extension. And I like a little one that I had my New Yorker showed me. She was just showing me how she holds it back like this. Just, is that the camel pose? Familiar? Is that the way? Yeah. So she does that, and we added that to her program straight away. She said she could feel that release the back. So there's a lot of variations here depending on the client. Then from there, I go into, after doing those, I would take you into the plank, and we look at, depending on like where you're at, like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Some of our women are planking for almost 90 seconds. So, it depends on where you are at. And I usually do that for one plank. And then after you've done one plank, we go into extension again. So maybe it's raising the arms. I don't like to do 3 sets of planks all in one go, because it doesn't balance the body, and it's just gives them that. And then from there, we go into your resistance exercises. So it can be that isometric hold of the biceps, or it could be a shoulder press. It could be with the resistance band, pushing, pulling type movements, like you're doing perfect like that. And just what you're doing there, if you sit with the legs slightly wider apart, doing the exact same movement you just did now, you will feel like you should feel more waist. I don't know if you can feel the waist engaging more. Can you feel that?
Yeah, more obliques.
More obliques. Now narrow the stance, and then you're going to feel here a lot more like this ab kind of workout. Like it's not as much a waist.
Right. It's higher.
It's higher, correct. You're getting more
Yeah.
pec sort of workout. You're getting more shouldery, pecky feeling there. Yeah. So it depends what you want to work out. It's all like, what they can do. And then we just it depends if it's gym workout. They've got machines, so they could be triceps, they could be doing pull-ups or hangs. There's so many exercises, as you know. So, and then we go into what I call like lifting up. Actually use the analogy of picking up a grandchild very often. So it's ironical that you say that, because it's such a basic lifting up. I don't know, it could be lifting up a box to put it in the top of a cabinet. It can be, picking up anything in front of you. So that's quite challenging for people with shoulders. So you have to build into these. And I know you appreciate every client, you have to work with them. And that's where the coaching comes in, because if you just say, go and do these exercises, I promise you, someone takes a 5-pound and lifts it like this, they can really hurt their shoulder. So a lot of the work in the program is just trying to loosen up that thoracic spine. So yoga is fantastic for that, and some of the exercises described as well. And then once you feel like you've got that mobility, then you can really push into that, go into the next level, which is the resistance. And I think the take-home message as well, besides that, Therica, is get the flexibility and the mobility first, because a lot of women want to just dive straight into resistance training, and they haven't actually got that function, and like you said, that the posture right. And it's frustrating because they want to get going. But I'm always like, just give me the first week or two. It won't be months. Just get that first week. Let's just get you set up. Because I'll give you a good example. If you ask the average person just to hold their arms out in front of them like this, like they will hold it for 3-4 seconds, and then they will drop because they'll feel tired in the neck. But once you actually get that, like those posterior muscles working, I mean, I feel like it should always feel light. Do you feel light? Do your arms feel light in front of you?
Yeah, I corrected though. I pulled my arms back. I activated my shoulder blades to help support that.
But
Yeah.
even if you, even if you are slightly there, you shouldn't feel heavy. You should never feel like, oh, my arm wants to drop, because that's just another. It's one of my tests that I do. It's like, how long can you hold it? And you can see that, oh, and that is not weakness. That's we talked about that drop in voltage. Your body's losing voltage. It's got no there's no flow. But yeah, I know it's difficult to give you all the exercises, because there's so many women at different stages. So some can't even hold a weight, and some want to, they really are, they're over 60, they've got rheumatoid arthritis, but they're like, I want to have a 6-pack. So don't treat me like a 70-year-old lady, like, let's get going. And I'm like, all right, let's bring it on. And then, so it really depends where you are at. Yeah.
You just need to work with someone that you feel safe with. I find that the classes that I teach that are the hardest, they actually love it at the end of the class. Like during it, they're like, when we come out of something, they're, and I
Brilliant.
tell them I love sound effects, but you're there to be their guide to take them through this safely. And we know that we need weight bearing. I mean, the two things that are going to build bones, number one is the exercise, the weight bearing. We have to do that.
Correct.
Number
Correct.
two is you need to have the nutrients, and then you need to have a healthy gut for that. And you need to digest and absorb to make sure you're absorbing those bone building blocks. But the main thing is movement, and we need to do it often. So this is
Correct.
great what you're sharing. And so a little bit, you work privately with women, you do private sessions, and then you use the word program. Is there a specific program you have, or do you mostly do one-on-one work?
I mainly do one-on-one. I don't sell. I don't have a program that I sell. We're working towards something like that. But a lot of my ladies, especially with autoimmune, work one-on-one, and just they appreciate the nuances because then some of them have a lot of pain. So if they do something, they often watching YouTube videos, and then they end up hurting themselves, and then that's where I usually get a phone call or an email, and then we realize I go, oh my gosh, I haven't been doing that, or what you said makes so much sense. So it's a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of like just tweaking the program. Some women have been there in the gym and they just need a few little tweaks. It's not like, you have to go back to baby steps. So yeah, but it's those women who are looking. I find that a lot of the women are injuring themselves because they've heard of the benefits of resistance training for osteoporosis, but now they end up doing, as you know, doing shoulders or wrists or something because they trying to push heavy weights with the wrong form.
What I find is they hurt their backs.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Because they're
absolutely.
not priming the pump in the way that you do it. They're not warming up, and they're not turning on the powerhouse
Correct.
support that is right around that midsection where that magical place is. And then everything goes to the back.
And final thought, one of the fastest ways to get that, I love that pump analogy you just used, by the way, it's great, like is just breathing, like letting go of breathing. Like just taking a deep breath in and just really like blowing out tension, because it's the internal tension that that a lot of, especially with women, like, and that's not a generalization, but just they hold a lot of tension in that area of that thoracolumbar junction. This is where we see the main blockage. Like we talk about flow, and like you don't have to get into their personal lives. I never get into any of the ladies' personal lives and psychoanalyze. I just said, but I know you're holding tension. Like just blow it up, take that 2 minutes, 3 minutes, like, and it's funny because I'm from Africa. We take everything really slow. Like when I'm working with my US clients, they're very like driven and want to get on with it, and it's great. It's why you guys are so successful as a nation. But like I'm always like, I feel like my goal is to slow down some of the Americans. Like, can we just slow down a little bit here and just get the breathing? Let's just take it. And then once you've got activation, you can go as hard and as fast as you want to, but you've got to release that handbrake. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Can I teach you one of my favorite breaths that I do at the end of class? And if I forget it, they're like, wait, what about this? Well, the sh sound, the SH sound actually really releases pelvic the floor, like shh, shh, shh. So do this with me, okay? I want you to grab from the air, whether you know it's stuff you're grabbing or not. It could be things in your life that you know about. You're going to hold it really tight, take a big inhale. And when you let it out, you're going to do WHOOSH. So exhale really quickly. Just do a little exhale. Now do another inhale and release.
I didn't need to release again. Okay. You can feel like a real fast release, which is
Yeah.
nice. Like it's a very exposed.
Okay, I
love that.
like that one.
But
Let me do it. Yeah, it's like really whether you do that. I do the long one. I usually do 3 of them, especially after a really, really hard practice, and they just love it. But like, maybe we should start with that. Now you're getting me
you can do
started.
that, and the other one is if you do the S sound, like I don't like the word snake, like this. If you say, you can put your hands on your waist muscles,
Mhm.
and then just go. You can feel
Yeah,
like as you get really activated. So that's
yeah.
people struggling to get activation through low, especially if they've have children or they've had and a lot of that. So just that, and so there's a lot of little like little secrets and gems that you learn along the way. But yeah, this is what's important. So yeah,
We need to
thank
work
you
on
for
a
having me.
program, Carl. We need to work on a program. I know we said that last time, but we really do. So let's do something where we put something together, or I have you as a guest. I have a community called Stronger Bones Lifestyle that is an extension of my podcast and the work that I do, a membership for women. And I bring in guest speakers, master classes. And whether we could do it live or not with you, because you're in South Africa, or we do a recorded session, it would be nice to offer something. And then
Yeah,
I'm going to
absolutely.
have your information at the bottom of this podcast. So anyone that wants to reach out to you, it's really important, I think, to work one-on-one with someone that knows bone health. And in your case, you have a lot of extensive experience in this space.
So this what I was thinking as well, which I do, is like a lot of my partners in Australia or the US have what you call, like, you have members, and I offer, like, so which is something we can discuss later, but it's just that I offer them like a free session, but and then depending on how many there are, I get remunerated, very small, like whatever, and then it just to offer to add that sort of benefit to the client. So there's something we can work on or look at, or there's no need. I'm not into the money side right now. Like, I just want to make a difference and sort of like help and say what's going to work, because if you just come out there with the money and the program, it might not even work. So we need to be adding value, as you know.
Yes, well, we'll come up with something. So anything you want to say before we end?
Yes, we just, again, don't live in fear. Move the body, go easy, take it. Just be aware of what you're working, feel the right muscles, and yeah, that's, I think, just keep moving.
Yeah, just keep moving. All right, Carl, thanks so much for visiting us again and sharing your wisdom. And let's see what happens in the future.
Perfect.
Thanks for joining me on Stronger Bones Lifestyle. Are you ready to take charge of your future? For show notes, resources, and information on my programs, please visit DebbieRobinson.com. If today's episode empowered you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs it. Together, we're building stronger bones and stronger lives. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.